What's up, gang? Today I'm going to be sharing the Arc 3.0 Hunter build that I've been enjoying for most of the season, so let's get to it. So let's start off with the abilities you're going to want to take. I'm going to be going through these a little fast, so pause the video if you need to read the description of any of the skills that I took. So the heart of this build is going to be the Skip Grenade, which we're going to be pairing with Shinobus Vow, the exotic hunter gauntlets. Shinobus Vow gives us 2 skip grenade charges, it improves the effectiveness of our skip grenades, and it also gives you grenade energy back when you deal damage with your skip grenades. For our melee, we're going to be taking Combination Blow for the emergency healing, but we shouldn't really be using this very much, especially since in higher difficulty activities, getting melee back is usually GG. Our super and jump choice don't affect the build too much, but I suggest Gathering Storm since we already have plenty of ad clear, and it's really safe and good at taking out champs and bosses. And even though the jump you take is normally a personal preference, blinking from cover to cover can be really useful, so I'd suggest you try it out if you haven't already. Next up is our aspects, and we're going to take Flow State since this allows us to become amplified very easily and buffs our dodge, as well as weapon handling and reload speed. Unfortunately, while both of the other aspects do each have 2 fragment slots, they're both melee focused, and since this isn't a melee build, this is more preference in my opinion. But both of them actually work fairly well. For fragments, we're going to want to take Spark of Resistance for the free damage resist, Spark of Ions, and Spark of Discharge so we can get our abilities back incredibly fast from creating ionic traces consistently. Just a note, Spark of Ions does have a brief cooldown, but it's a guaranteed ionic trace, while Spark of Discharge is RNG, but it's fairly consistent. And lastly, Spark of Shock, which supercharges the damage our skip nades deal by adding a jolt effect to them. Okay, now that we're done with the fragments, let's move on to weapons. So for our primary, I highly recommend either Judgment or the Last Breath from the Prophecy Dungeon, since these are easily farmable and they can both drop with Osmosis and Demolitionist, which makes them great for this build. For our special weapon, this is going to be the other core component of this build, the legendary glaive Nezarecs Whipser. Now, this is farmable from the Containment Public Event or the weekly Sever mission. You might already have one with the right roll, but you can at least guarantee 1 red border every week from the Crown of Sorrow and the Helm if you have really bad luck with your drops and actually end up having to craft it for the right roll. And the roll you're going to want is Demolitionist and Unstoppable Force. I'd say you can probably use Adrenaline Junkie as well, but I prefer Unstoppable Force since all you have to do for the extra damage is block something, whereas with Adrenaline Junkie, you have to get a kill. And our final recommended weapon is the Chain of Command Seasonal Machine Gun, which isn't too hard to get since you can just buy it from the kiosk, no RNG involved. And this is going to have Osmosis, Demolitionist, Adrenaline Junkie, and Adaptive Munitions. So this weapon's actually really flexible depending on the content that you're doing. Quick side note here, one of the things that I wanted to try and bring attention to with this video was that a lot of these weapons are relatively easy to obtain and the build is fairly simple to use. Okay, now onto the mods. Oh wait, you don't need any. Okay, no, seriously, while this build does actually work with almost no mods, you're definitely going to need ammo mods, and the rest are suggestions that I found some success with. So here's what I'm using. The first mod I recommend is Lightning Strikes Twice, which is from the seasonal artifact, and this thing cranks your grenade spam up to 11, as this reduces the cooldown of your arc grenades after you use them, and arc kills extend the duration, and since we have potentially 3 arc weapons, this is actually really easy to keep up. In my helmet, I have glaive ammo and machine gun ammo finder, so we don't run out of ammo for our weapons. If you're feeling really bold, you can use double glaive finder, but I'm not a gambling man, so I do have one of each. Up next, we've got Seeking Wells, since it only costs 2 energy and allows us to slot both ammo finders and a 3 energy stat mod. Seeking Wells is a great ease of use mod since it keeps us from having to run directly over every elemental well that we generate, which is very handy in activities while you're being shot at. Okay, so normally in this kind of ability spam build, I would take a Kickstart mod in the arm slot, but unfortunately Kickstart mods don't work with abilities that have 2 charges in them, so we're just going to put Font of Might in here for the bonus arc weapon damage. For the chest piece, I recommend a Resist mod and a Glaive Reserves mod. But you can probably get away with no resist mod if you're 7 Resil or higher, since that'll give you a flat 20% damage reduction from all sources, and the Glaive Shield offers a really strong damage resist on top of that. We also have Spark of Resistance for even more damage reduction. All that being said, I chose to slot in an elemental time dilation mod just to keep our font of might up for a little bit longer. For my boots, I've got Glaive Scavenger to keep our glaive ammo economy up, since that's going to be our main weapon, and Elemental Ordnance to make our elemental wells. Alright, now for the class item. Since lightning strikes twice costs 7, we only have enough energy for that and a 3 cost stat mod in our class item. But when it's gone next season, I plan on either putting a Bountiful Wells mod here or a Font of Wisdom here for even faster super generation. I'm also experimenting with a version of this build that generates and uses solar wells for increased grenade energy and bonus healing. Let me know in the comments if you want to see that as well. That's going to wrap up the mod portion though. Here's some gameplay to show you how the build flows. I start off by firing my glaive just to get some shield energy in case I need the shield for safety. Then throw a nade which gets lightning strikes twice going, kill some adds, and then absolutely tank this unstoppable champion. Throw another nade to reload my glaive and keep tanking this champion. Then fail my dodge, but take minimal damage since while I'm amplified, flow state gives our dodge damage reduction. Keep tanking the champion and the turret, we reload with Demolitionist, and then finish the champion. Now that did take longer than usual, but that's because I never stunned the champion, so I was taking severely reduced damage. Notice, we had grenades up almost the whole time though. Alright, now we're going to skip ahead a bit to a slightly more challenging section. So here I'm going to use Chain of Command and grenades to break this void shield since match game is on and Chain of Command has adaptive munitions. Alright, I'm going to let the gameplay roll and go over some other stuff you might want to know. This build does work in endgame content as I used this in the Kingsfall raid on my first clear in week 1, and it definitely excels at ad clear. One thing I did change was my heavy based on the encounter we were in. Speaking of the heavy, Chain of Command has Osmosis and so do the kinetic weapons I suggested. So this loadout actually has you covered for any arc burn activity, and it also covers anti-barrier and overload champions. If you're looking to farm Judgment, it drops from the first boss in Prophecy, and the Last Breath drops from the second boss encounter. If you're using this build in a public event space, throwing your nade at a single low health red bar like a Scion, you might notice you're not getting quite as much grenade energy back, but that's because it only returns energy based on the grenade damage dealt, not the jolt damage. But you will still have lightning strikes twice, and in public event spaces, it doesn't really matter that much since you'll for sure kill anything on the first skip grenade. Also, I would have loved to try this build with the Firepower Combat mod, but I don't have it. Bungie, please make old mods more accessible. Ada selling them at random is not a good system. Alright gang, that's everything for me today. But let me know what you think in the comments. I've been having a ton of fun with the setup, and I hope you give it a try as well. I'll link the exact rolls I recommend for each weapon in the description. Bless you all and have a great day.